First thing on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is public comment. Do you have any public comments?
If you are joining us remotely and you want to come, you can either use the hand reaction down below or unmute your mic and.
Okay, I don't, do you hear any?
Nope, not hearing any.
All right, so we have no public comment. Next thing on the agenda is the consent agenda. A motion,
I'll move.
second, okay. All right,
May I ask that the minutes be separated simply because I wasn't here? And I would have to abstain and then abstain on the whole agenda, on the whole agenda.
okay, so we will separate the minutes. Is there any comment on any part of the public, the consent agenda?
I guess I just have a question. Are we still okay for staffing, Jim? You know, because I keep seeing that we have more people resigning than we're hiring, so.
Yep. I don't have the list in front of me, but I do know that we have openings probably at just about every school,
Okay,
elementary, middle school, high school, you know, that we're still struggling to fill.
okay. Just because it's scary when I start seeing some of the teacher positions, behavior specialists. And I
Yep.
think we're probably still short some special educators, which are pretty high skilled positions.
Yep.
So.
Not
it's
as
just-
many as you would think. I'm not going to say like this wholesale openings, but there are open positions.
Okay,
Okay, is there any other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll vote, excuse me, on the consent agenda minus the minutes. All those in favor signify by raising your hand or saying yes.
Yes.
Okay, it passes. All right, now the minutes, do you want to read them or
No, I just wasn't here, Cindy, so I can't,
you can vote on them?
I can't vote that they're correct, so
I wasn't there either.
I will abstain.
so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting from
Second.
September 14th.
Okay, thank you. Motion been made and seconded. All right, so for the rest of us, if you pass it, please raise your hand. Okay. It's
Aye.
yes. All right,
And I'll abstain.
all right, the treasurer's report for September 2021. Is there any questions on the finance?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion been made and second. All right. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand or saying yes.
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 It passes. All right, next thing on the agenda is policies. I see we have none. Do we still hold, is there still policy meetings? or-
They have not held any yet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's suspended temporarily.
Okay, which is fine. I'm not looking to have it be. All right, next thing on the agenda is the SB issue representatives report. And I guess that's you or Chayla.
Well, I can tell you that our first meeting for the superintendent's evaluation took place on the 7th of October. Another one is scheduled for the 21st at 5:30. That's this Thursday.
Mhm.
No, 2 Thursdays from now. There's a subcommittee to discuss finances, and that meeting is this Thursday at 5, the 14th. And we're waiting to convene a subcommittee to discuss substitute pay and options and how to develop that program a little better. So that's what we got working.
Very good. Okay.
Just one question, Dick. As part of that finance subcommittee, are we talking about how we're using the ESSER grants, from the federal recovery, like all the COVID money? Because I don't hear much of it. I just want to make sure we're spending it in the appropriate manner.
So that is all on our website, but
Okay.
My understanding, one of the bigger topics for this finance committee is before we enter budget season, the allotment assignment for North Bennington was
Okay.
what the request from Ray Melino.
Okay.
And we have to look at Sandgate. That
And
might
Sandgate,
be in
too.
the same situation as well.
So that's really the focus of that meeting.
Okay. Just because you hear horror stories of, schools using that recovery money to build football fields and things like that in the news. So just make sure that's
I
not
can assure you that that certainly is not the case.
just making sure.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
All right, next up is the superintendent's report.
So with Jeff's question, I went into School Spring that lists all the jobs that we have open. And this doesn't mean that some of them may not already have candidates in progress, but I'm seeing a fifth grade opening. Was not my glasses are steaming up. Fifth grade opening, secretary opening, intensive needs specialist, a pre-kindergarten, kindergarten ELA math coach, pre-kindergarten, kindergarten social emotional coach. So those are the openings I'm seeing in elementary school right now.
Okay.
Yep. First thing I want to address is we didn't have school today, as you may know. And I'm going to read the statement that we released on that. So first, I want to say that all schools will be open tomorrow, Wednesday, September 13th. But because of illness and bereavement leave, due for transportation was unable to staff all buses today. Therefore, due for manager Mike Gardner and myself made the decision to cancel school last evening so that students and families could have as much time to prepare as possible. We did not want to wait till this morning to make that decision. We wanted families to have as much time as possible to plan for childcare. But again, school will be open tomorrow and all buses will be running on schedule. So it was an unfortunate set of circumstances. I don't take the cancellation of school lightly, and because it impacts so many things that we do, including serving our students lunch. So it will be a day that will be added to the end of the school year, similar to how we do with snow days. So just, I know that other schools out parts of the country are facing bus driver shortages. I'm aware in Massachusetts that the National Guard is driving buses in many of the urban school districts. It's not the case of a lack of drivers. It was the unavailability of drivers today. So, and Mike Gardner has assured me that they will be running tomorrow. The second speaker in our speaker series is coming up. I have brochures if you like. It's going to be October 21st next week at 3:30. It's a Zoom meeting, and that speaker will be Dr. Ashley White, and she is an assistant professor from the University of Wisconsin, and she will be speaking about culture within the BIPOC community. She will her talk that she will present is the BIPOC community needs and structural changes necessary to create a safe and inclusive environment, and all staff and school board members are invited to attend. I also asked Ashley Walker to give up her valuable time and come in to speak about where we are on COVID testing, contact tracing, what's the next step, what are we hearing from the state. She has done an excellent job for us, not only with handling the cases as they evolve, along with all your other school nurses who are just doing above and beyond. But Ashley, besides all of that, has also been attuned to all the memos that are coming out from both the Nurse Association, the Board of Health, and the Agency of Education as we navigate through this. So, Ashley, what can you share with us tonight? And thank you for coming. Muted, Ashley.
Yes, you're muted.
Doesn't say you're muted, but we can't hear you. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
You can.
All right, I had to take my headphones out. I apologize if my kids arrive at home. They are rather loud, so they're with their dad. So hopefully it won't be too noisy.
We're used to that in the Zoom environment. Go right ahead.
Yes, I know. So we are still doing universal masking in all the schools. The AOE actually extended that date to November 1st to give schools time. We know the elementary schools still have no vaccine available. We are hoping that maybe by the end of the month or early in November, we should start seeing a vaccine available. So really not much has changed for the elementary schools. I will share with you just an update of case numbers. Ben Al has had a total of 4 cases, the last one being September 5th. Molly Stark has had 3 cases, the last being October 4th. Monument has had 2 cases, the last being September 8th. Pownell had 6 cases, the last being September 9th. Shasberry had 4 cases, the last of being today, which went out to the public at 5 o'clock tonight. And then I have high school, middle school, but that really doesn't apply to you guys. The early ed department has not had any cases of COVID at this point in time. These are only cases that we know about because they were infectious during the school period. There have been other cases where kids were not in school or staff, and those are not numbers that we record. Those are just outside numbers. I know there's a lot of information swirling around. The AOE has this new program called Test to Stay, which offers only those kids who were exposed during school the option to test every day to stay in school. So as you can see, it really wouldn't have a huge impact right now because we're not seeing a lot of in-school cases. But that is something that they are starting to, the process of, there's a waiver that the SVSU needs to sign in order to sign up for that. But I will tell you that the nurses' offices are pretty stretched right now, and I'm not sure staffing wise what we would need to make that happen. But there is a lot of things floating around from the AOE, and in a perfect world, it would be great. But right now, it's just not something we can do in this moment in time without some support. So that's really all I have for an update, unless the vaccine becomes available soon. Does anybody have any specific questions?
What type of support would you need for the testing for the kids to stay in school?
A good
Well,
question. It's the same one I asked her today.
It is. So there's a couple different testing programs that they have. What the Test to Stay is an antigen test. Wes, you need to stay downstairs, please. So that would mean that we would need a nurse to be in the building essentially before school starts, because the kids would need to be tested before the day begins.
Yep.
And they have to be tested every day for the 7 days. You also have to remember that all of these programs are only based on parent consent.
Mhm.
And if a parent does not consent to do them, then the student still stays home. So that is another hurdle that we would have to face is getting parents to consent to doing the testing every day.
Mhm.
So really, there's a lot of factors. The first thing is we have to start, there's a waiver that the district has to apply for in order to even opt into starting to think about the testing. So the superintendent and I spoke about that today in getting that process started, because I would love to do this. I just think that right now in today's moment, it's really not going to happen tomorrow. It's a slow process to get it done.
Okay. But we're working on it. So we'll start with the waiver and move forward.
Yeah, Jim and I spoke about getting the waiver started. And I mean, today I don't know how many of you heard the governor's press conference, but only 26 supervisory unions in the whole state have even started the waiver process. And I don't know, Jim probably knows better how many numbers of supervisory unions there are, but that's not probably even half of them have started.
That's
So
about
this
a third.
is a statewide issue.
About a third.
Yeah.
So it's certainly something, Jeff, that, Ashley and I are going to continue to look at. I think if I had to guess today, that we will apply, and they want us to apply, even if we think that we may not be able to do it. They want us to at least begin the process. And if we have to pull out because we don't have the resources, then that's the course they're asking us to take.
Okay.
So I I do want to touch on one thing that Ashley talked about. So the middle school and high school, like they've been eligible to be vaccinated since what date, Ashley? Like July, was it?
Since really most of the kids were eligible in May, most of our
May.
kids started getting vaccinated May 22nd.
And
I think was the first
the
week
last
on it.
update you gave me is that we're probably somewhere around 40%.
Yep. So at the middle school, I can tell you we're at 42% vaccinated because the state is now allowing us to access the registry for that information. And I do know that the high school is a little bit higher right now, including their juniors and seniors alone. They're at 47%. So they still have to enter their freshman and sophomore data. So they are potentially getting much closer to being higher numbers, but we're a far cry from 80%
Right.
at this point in
Far
time.
cry from 80%, and they've been eligible since May. So if the the point I'm trying to make, if the elementary schools become eligible in early November, it's going to be a long haul before we can get to the point that we're not masking and not either testing or contact tracing, because if we
And I want to say, like, they're saying that the test to stay would help with contact tracing, but it doesn't, because we still have to contact trace those that were exposed. So we still have to do the work of contact tracing. Plus now they want us to test the kids in school to keep them in school. So really the state says they're going to modify contact tracing for schools, but we still need to identify those close contacts. That's still a process to do, and that's very time consuming. You're talking about a whole classroom of kids needing to be tested every day in an elementary school because they are a pod system. So you're talking 20 kids a day that would need to have a COVID test done to stay
Well,
in school.
we're not, having the whole class leave. It's only groups of that class. Of course, that's why I've heard from Shasbury parents that half the class the whole class doesn't go. It's been whoever's in the close contact with that child.
No, so in an elementary school, unless a student was there for less than 4 hours, they would select those kids. But if a student has been in the class for more than 4 hours, everybody in the classroom is considered a close contact. That's the definition by the state. So there may have been a few cases where the student was only in school for half a day or was only in a classroom for an hour.
Okay.
Then they would only look at that. But in an elementary school, most of the time, it's still a pod system of everybody who is unvaccinated needs to quarantine.
Yeah, and that I think is going to be my question that I was raising my hand for was what is the number that we're seeing when we see a case? Like how many on average are impacted and having to be home for those 7 days?
So yeah, so in an elementary school, you're talking 15 to 20 kids most of the time. In a middle and high school, you're talking anywhere between 10 to 15 kids because they change classes frequently. But a lot of those kids are vaccinated. And once they are vaccinated, we don't require them to quarantine. They continue to come to school. So my hope is once the elementary school is eligible, I am hoping that that population of families will actually get their kids vaccinated at a higher rate than what we've seen at the middle and high school level.
Yeah, I agree. And then my other question with middle school, I have to imagine that it's going to be really hard even at the middle school for us to get up to 80% because you have the sixth graders and a percentage of those sixth graders aren't going to be 12 yet. So until we have that elementary age being vaccinated, I don't think that I can't see how the middle school would ever even be at that 80% either.
Yeah, there's about 156 graders, and I would say 148 are not eligible to be vaccinated because of their age. So once it does, that will help our numbers if we do see the sixth grade, but it's not going to get us to 80%. I think would have to have 340 kids right now, not including our sixth graders, vaccinated in order to be able to reach 80%. So once we add in all 600 kids, that number obviously increases.
But hopefully we're no more than 3 to 4 weeks away from eligibility.
They were thinking hopefully by Halloween, and I think that's still the process that they are hoping it would be by the end of the month. And then you got to remember it's 3 weeks between each vaccine and then 2 weeks after. So you're talking 6 weeks from day one of dosing before you're considered fully vaccinated.
And Ashley, so we're not at the 6 month period yet then for any of our eligible students who need to have a booster yet. If they were starting in May or June, we're not there yet.
No, they would be end of November, beginning of December for most of them.
Okay.
I don't think they're even high priority. I think they're still doing above 60s
Right.
in healthcare still. And
Actually, the state of Vermont opened it up to anybody. As long as it's been 6 months and you had Pfizer, you can get your Pfizer booster. Because they're not seeing a huge population of people, because a lot of people did get Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. So once we see Moderna come on board with a booster and Johnson & Johnson, then I think we'll see a higher population of people getting them. But initially, mostly healthcare workers got Pfizer because it was the first vaccine available. And then, of course, the kids got Pfizer because it's the only one approved.
Thank you, Ashley, for everything that you do.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Again, Ashley, thank you. I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done. I think a day does not go by, and I'm talking weekends too, that we are not talking or texting. And that's been going on for months. So thank you for staying the course, and thank you to all the other nurses that work with you too.
Yeah, we definitely are a team. We all help each other out in making things work. So
Thanks for coming and updating board. I just felt it would be more prudent to have Ashley here directly than having me repeat what she said to you, and she's gone. So any questions for me other than?
Just one, I had mentioned, I know you said secretary, but I want to make sure that we're still on the list for a second secretary of
Yes.
Pownell.
Yep.
Because she really needs it. And I feel it's.
I understand, yeah.
It's my
And
job
same
to-
with, it's the same with Bennett Elementary. They're down to 1 too. So we're working on restoring those positions.
Okay, as long as I know we're
Yeah.
in the mix. Then I'll step.
It might be slightly different role than what they did before because we're using ESSA funds for it, you know, which we hope to do. So,
Right.
Okay.
Anything about, just
I
having a
understand,
second
yeah.
body there, even to answer the phone.
Yeah.
And I do believe even our new,
because it was never the intent to cut it. It was intent to not fill any positions that were open when we thought that we were going to lose funding. Remember it? So that's, it was there, and it was Benel and a few other positions. The French teacher retiring at the high school, we didn't fill those positions, not because we wanted to cut those positions, because it was better to not fill something than riff somebody, because that, at one point, we had no idea what the impact of COVID was going to be on funding.
and I'm not sure, I mean, our budget's gonna be coming up pretty soon, so I'm gonna stay on top of it, make sure that we do have money in there because
Restore it back
this
into.
is really important. Okay.
just one last thing, Jim, just so, because I brought up in the past, and we're 2 years out from the last time we really had pre-pandemic school. They had a report on NPR today talking about the impact of COVID in our education. Can we start looking at the numbers of where our kids stand? Because we know there is really an equity issue with what happened. The kids with disabilities, minorities, and low socioeconomics, they tend to do worse during the pandemic. So we have good data from 2 years ago, which is the fall and the winter data from MAPS testing. So if we can look at that data,
I'd be happy to put on next month's agenda. We could have Melissa Senko come and give the board an update of what data we do have on where our students are.
Yeah, just because it'd be nice to see how our kids fare during the last 2 years.
Thank you, Jeff, that's a good one,
We'll put that on.
yes. Great. Great. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us, Mr. Superintendent?
No, I'm good.
Chair's report. Well, the only thing I can report is that we're going to have a meeting on the second Tuesday in November. I have no other. Anybody else have any questions?
I mean, I just want to put it out there since we're here. I want to put out the condolences to the Gardner family. They do quite a bit, so I just want to have them in our thoughts. I know today was hard for parents, and the kids who want to be in school, but I mean, they had to take care of their family as well. So it's nice to kind of make sure we support them.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. That is good. He was a good man.
Yes, he was.
All right, we have our FYI, which is the SVSU student enrollment for 2021. And that's to be posted, the budget status report. Is there any other business to come before the board tonight?
No, you have an executive session on there, but you don't need that this evening. There's no updates on that matter at this time. So we'll push that to next month.
Till next month. Okay. If I don't hear any more, to have, please make a motion that we adjourn.
So move.
Second. Okay, motion was made, seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Chayla. All right, so be it. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Good night.